Oh, a little bit more progress on the mini lathe. We've now got the top half of the guard fitted to the lower, which you saw me make. Pretty straightforward, that piece, got a lip underneath. I will be screwing it in or supporting it more solidly, but it's got the 2 bolts on, but yeah, it's good as it stands. So final thing I need to do is put a belt guard on, and here's one I prepared earlier. Simple again, just folded aluminium, a couple of tabs over there to box that end in, and that sits on there. I've marked it out where it's going to sit there, and that covers the guard out, keeps my fingers out of it, most importantly, and will keep anything from dropping onto the belt and in the belt. May put something on the inside as well, something with a couple of self-tappers, or maybe a self-tapper on the top, just to box it in completely in case anything falls down in there, but that's for another day. So take this end guard off now, fit, I don't know whether to screw it in here with some nuts and bolts. I think I'm going to screw it in with some nuts and bolts, and then I'll just trim this piece away once it's bolted on. But yeah, I mean, it's coming along, and that will certainly keep my fingers out of that belt, because I don't want to slip a hand off the top of the machine or whatever, and I don't want anything falling in there either. So far so good. So I'd forgotten I hadn't shown the finished effect. So yeah, it's got the nameplate on the front, Gordon the engine, and it's now complete. I have got to make the handle, a handle for the drive that goes down into the chimney, but it's just a straight piece of turning. But that's just a finishing off detail. But everything's there. Job's a good one, and I really do like the way it turned out. So a little job I've been meaning to do is square this tool post up on the lathe, or this face square to the treble. So if I just bring the clock in to a 0, I've just been tapping it around, I loosened the nut, so let's get a 0 in my eye line. Okay, it's close enough for what I'm trying to explain. So if I just wind across now, hold on, I had it a moment ago, I'm moving something. Okay, let me just, there, 0. Okay, just take it gently. I'm dropping down there. Alright, I'm about a thou low here. Okay, let me just give it a little tap. Let's try that again. 0 this end. There's something that's just come to mind, is I haven't got a carriage lock. I think I need to make a carriage lock. Okay, 0 that end. So let me just finally, everything's going to move here, but not the tool post, I hope. Let me just nip that down, double check it, come into a 0. It's just over. Okay. Make sure nothing moved when I did that. Okay, so that's got the tool post squared up onto its riser block in relation to the axis. So what I'm going to do now is take the whole lot off. Now there is a bolt under here which I've taken out previous to doing this. I've got this locked up. I can now take the riser block off with the tool post, take it to the mill and put a key in so that I can lock it regularly in the square position, and I know it'll always come back to that. So that's something I need to do. So I got my spare milling vise, or grinding vise, old grinding vise, clamped up onto the table. I didn't want to put this one out of square. Got the block in it, and I'm just clocking up the back face of this of the quick change tool post, and I've got it now clocked in 0 0 either way. So if I just wind the clock off so you can see I did have some load on it. Yeah, I mean that's that clocked in. So I'm going to take the quick change tool post. I'll mark a line now down on the bottom. I'll take the tool post off, and I'm going to put a pocket in here to put a key in, and then we'll machine the key then to be a nice fit against the side of the post when I put it on. So yeah, I've done it before. It's much the same as I did on the other tool post on the Walco lathe. So okay, pocket's done, 8mm wide for a key. Key is in my fingers. Because it left a knife edge on here, it's 4.5mm deep, I think. Yes, it is. I just dropped this down, so this edge is only about 2.5mm deep, but I've dropped this down and machined it flat on this, what was a knife edge, so it didn't leave a horrible knife edge. And the key just fits in there snug. So I'm going to put a tapped hole in the middle, so if it gets stuck in there, I can jack it out. Drill and countersink for maybe M4 either end, 2 screws, drill and tap down into the base. When it's all in place, obviously I'll have to round the ends off of the key. When it's all in place, then I'll look at the measurement that I need to machine off what's going to be this side of the key, so that the tool post just fits in snug and locks in position. So yeah, more to do, but it's just little details. So I've got my rotary table up, and I've got my clock stand placed on the rotary table, and I always get glare off DTIs for some reason. I don't know whether it can help. Yeah, there we are, it's a bit better. So just checking the spindle where I'm running the clock on it, on the outside of the of my ER32 arbor, and you can see it's within about 1 thou. Okay, so I'll just stop that. So I'm going to bring it back. I'm going to disengage the rotary table so that it's disattached from its gears, and I can free spin the rotary table then. So I'll do that next. So just undo the little lock there, then disengage the handle so you can see nothing attached now, and that allows me to then rotate the rotary table. So what I've done, in fact I've already done it, difficult for me to show, but if I rotate the clock around the spindle now, and I've had a look on 4 points, and that's within 1 thou on the clock. So it's a quick and simple way, without lever DTI or without clocking the bore. I'm clocking the rotation of the table on its bearing, as opposed to the bore, clocking the rotation of the table. Let me bring you up, you can't see the clock here. So, okay, as I rotate the table, I can do it by hand, and I'm just sweeping around the top. I know that the rotation of the table, and I've already set it, locked it all off. In fact, I haven't done the DRO. Now I have. DRO is set to 0. So I now know that the spindle is in the middle of the world in relation to the table, or the rotation of the table. So there we are, that's that job done. So my slot here to the outsides is 35mm long. So my key going to drop in there, and we're going to have 2 4mm Allen bolts in there eventually. But for now, I'm going to put 2 4mm reamed holes in the key. So quick sketch, let me bring you down. Ooh, there we are, I took the glare off it. So 35mm overall length. I've just set a datum on the block in a vise. I'll come back to that next. Smack in the middle with my tool. So I'm in the middle this way and in the middle of the overall. Doesn't matter what the length is for now, the block is over length, but I'm gone to the middle. So with it being 35mm long, normal 8mm wide, I want to come back 4mm from each end. So 4 and 4 is 8, 8 from 35, 27. If I'm on the centre line, 13.5, 13.5. So plus and minus 13.5 from my 0 point where I am now. So I'm smack bang in the middle at the moment. Got my chuck set up. Let's just get a centre drill. Am I? Hold on a second. Don't appear to be in the middle. Oh, I am in the middle, yeah. It looked an optical illusion. Right. Okay, so DRO is set 00, 13.5mm. There. Yeah, I was, you see, problem. Block's moved. Okay, need to remember to tighten the vise up. That's probably always a good thing. So I've set it all up again. Let's try again. Only needs a little centre drill. Right, 13.5 the other way. There we go. That'll do. It's only a pilot. Right. Let's take, hang on, I'm going to use power feed. Take the head up a bit. Right, 3.8mm drill. I hadn't mentioned I've made this block is made out of 01. I've got various offcuts of 01 from the previous life. Always chuck little pieces in a box. You never know when they're going to be handy, and nowadays they're starting to be handy. Ooh, just overshot it. And wise move to touch as well. Okay. So the purpose of the reamed holes, obviously they will be clearance on a 4mm bolt eventually. The purpose is that I can pick up on these holes for the centre of rotation. So, what do I want? Bit of cutting compound. Where is it? I can see it. You'll probably see the camera move around here a bit. And that's me moving around in the shed on the floor, because the camera's on a wooden floor. Right, okay. And obviously a camera on the tripod in this little small shed of mine pretty much is a big old obstacle. I think we can slow that down a bit. Okay, that's that one. Let's pop across to the other one. 13.5. Why he keeps jumping on me? Just a tiny bit on the clock every time I loosen that lock off. Should be enough on me. Okay, it did cut, although it wasn't a lot. So, that's the 2 reamed holes. Next job, just deburr that, put it up on the rotary table. Let's see what sort of setup we can come up with. So, I put the part on a parallel, hanging out an appropriate distance from my small little base. Okay, and as you can see, I've got a clamp there ready, but I can move this around. So if I bring, and I've already got a 4mm dowel located in my spindle. Right, if I just bring that down to pass through the hole, lock it there, I've fixed the hole in position in relation to everything. My rotary table set on 0. I did clock in the back face of my rotary table when I set it up. So if I use a square now and just square that block up, and I am going with it there, all square. Okay, and lock down the block. So I should be able to just slip that dowel out of there. That feels nice. Let's just go a bit more on that block. Nothing's moved. Okay, so I've now got my pivot point locked on centre of rotation of the table. Not necessarily over that hole, but on centre of rotation of the table. So there's my datum point. So I'm going to swap this, take the dowel out now, swap over to something like a, I don't know, a little 5-6mm cutter, something like that, and sweep this in. I've got the table locked in X. I've actually got the lock fixed, and I'm going to move in Y gradually until I get that full rad. So, turn the hand clockwise, turns table clockwise. Just starting to cut. It's my second pass. So I've put a couple of lines on my rotary table. to show me where the 90 degrees is. Just up here. Don't need to go all the way there until we get close to end. So put a little cut on, bringing the table this way, and you can see we're starting to put the rad on. So it hasn't cleaned the end of the block up yet, but it will be machining off the end because the block is oversized. So I'm bringing my, can you see it? I don't know, but I got a little black line on the table here. Bringing it round, I've got my indicators down on this face, my 0 position. We're getting there. A lot of setup for very little machining, but we've probably all spotted it, that it's always you know, they tend to spend more time setting jobs up. That's almost at the 90 there, and that's just about touching. It's still touching and I'm not at the 90 yet, so let me just keep going round. That might be the final cut. And I think we've got it. I'm just going to set it, no, not going to change my dimension. Let's just come off with a cutter. Bring the cutter out the way, let's have a look. So I have got slice of undercuts there. I have gone a tiny bit far, but nothing that won't just dressing with a stone. It's literally a witness mark. Okay, so all I do now, change back to the the dowel pin, reset it up again, but I'll turn the block around in the vise. Yeah, turn the block around in the vise, unclamp it, turn the block around, sticking out the other end, relocate it, square it back up again, and off to go again. So what I mustn't forget to do is, while I'm at it, is reset to 0. Otherwise, I'm not squaring up to anything in particular. And that is 0. I just locked my table off there. Okay, and I mustn't forget to go back to centre as well, back to my datum point when I set up the new block. I was just about to undo the vise, and then I realised I don't need to. Just taking this part out of the vise, I don't need to undo the clamp, I should say. Put parallel under, just slide forward, it should be still on datum. In goes the dowel. Let me just hold the part solid in the vise down. Tighten up the vise. Let's just take that parallel out again. We don't want to be machining that. And there we are. Back on centre. Do the other end. When I did the other end, I was feeding in from the end of the part. When I was aligned with the end, I decided to turn it round to its 90 degrees, which is there, that's 90 degrees. Now if I'm on the last couple of cuts, if I just bring the part towards me in Y, there, stop, okay, now go round. So I set it at 90, waited till I heard the slightest sound. Now go round and finish it off. less chance of me overshooting. I was feeding in, you know, from the end direction when I had no reference as to where I was. That should be very nearly there. That's 0. Okay, let's just come back. I'm going to call that. And that time I haven't overshot. So what I'm going to do now is measure the overall length of the key to make sure that it's not too long for the slot. If it is, what I will do is move this whole radius back by going in X just slightly. In fact, let me just try and explain myself. My reference point is my 90 degrees this time. So if I went from there, if I moved the whole part that way, I would in effect shorten the key. It won't be perfectly in the radius, I agree, but or from the reamed hole, but that doesn't matter. I haven't drilled the holes in the block yet, but that gives me the possibility of shortening the length, overall length. So my slot length, let me just double check myself before we go any further. Get the swarf out of my calipers. 0, that's good. So my slot length is measuring up 34.95. So I'm looking for overall on here about 34.9. And that is 34.99. Okay. So what I'm going to do is move 0.1 in X this way with the part in this 90-degree orientation. Then I'm going to go back and do the whole thing again. And that will, all that will do is as if I push the block out a little bit. So will that work, or do I push the block out? Just making sure I'm not being silly here. Do I push the block out 0.1, or will moving the table work? I'm confused. I'm going to have a think about this before I cut it. So I'm going to scratch my head and thought about it for a moment. Yeah, it didn't cause a problem. I looked at what effect it would have by moving the 0.1 over, and it would have the effect I was looking for. Well, that's measuring 34.92 I'm getting. Well, it bumped the caliper, but 34.92. So I think that will now fit in the slot. And if it doesn't, a little bit of dressing and licking, and it will. So I'm going to take it out and call that my key done. But suppose, let's do this in shot. Will it fit? That's the way. No, yes. It goes in the length. I haven't got it down in yet. May need to just run a stone over it, break some edges to get it to fit in. I mean, it's very fitty this way, as you can see, and it does fit in the overall length, as you can see. So yeah, happy days. All that remains now is to spot those holes down, tap some holes in this block, and it's done. So I stripped everything down, clean table again, keys in, it's good fit in there. Just a mark, 3.9 drill. Okay, yeah, how do I get that out of there again? Start to move. Oh yeah, gotcha. Okay, so 2 holes spotted. This is just drilling and tapping, guys, so yeah, drill and tap length 4. Then screw the key down, then take the screws out one at a time, maybe countersink the top for the cap head. Jobs are good, and really So I just put my vise back up. Now regularly I have the vise sort of this end of the table, offset this side. So it's been there for 12 months, I may be doing that. So I've decided to put it the other side, just because always operating the table in the same area, let's swap to a new area. So putting the vise on the same sort of offset, but the other way for a change. And I have got room down the end here. So yeah, just clocked it up. I put my blocks, one either side, away from the vise and then just clamped loosely, tapped it into square, and it's running sweet now. Not one little bit of movement in the clock. So let me just take load off just to show. Okay, nearly one full turn. Let's put it back on, go to a 0. Let's go there. Yeah, I mean, it's sat dead still. So I'm happy with that. So I can push my other blocks in now. I'll leave the clock on it while I tighten up these two diagonals against it. Then I'll loosen off the original ones and we'll test it again. But I'm more than happy that it's square. And yeah, tidy. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention, my little blocks here, probably 2 years ago, I made them, the clamp blocks for the vise, and they were starting to look a bit grubby, you know, slight flash rusting on them in places. So took them all apart while I had it off, wire wheeled them all, and I've re-chemical blacked them or chemical blued them, but they look a bit neater now. They were looking a little tatty. Now I've got my main vise back on. I've just nipped up my other vise here, got the key in, got the countersinks, got the screws, everything's done there. But when I cut the slot, if you recall, going back, probably beginning of this video, so I got to think back a week. This face here is going to be underneath the block slightly, so it's going to need to be machined. So I need to set it up now, and when I put the slot in for the key, I offset the block to the correct angle so that everything was right when it's bolted on the lathe. So in relation to the block, I can't just put this block in my squared up vise, and rather than mess about with the nicely squared up vise, I'm just clocking in the back face. So I've nipped one side, and let's just, and sweeping across. That's that key trued up. So I can put my clamps back on now, or put my other clamp on. I just nipped it one side. In fact, I can't get to there very well. Okay. Right. Let me just check that again. Bring the clock in. Get it touch up to 0. Okay, happy with that. So that's that clocked in. Yeah, let's just pop the clock out of there so we don't damage it. Put that away neatly in a moment. So that's now true to the travel of the mill. So I've got to put the stud back in and see how much has got to come off this block. I'm not entirely sure, but I can work it out. So, undercutting the surface, 0.1. Plenty of meat left for the tool post to sit on, but just so I can get in a square corner. Now it is milling into the bolt heads a little bit, but I'm not worried about that. This is going to stay here pretty much permanently. And I'm nowhere near the Allen key head bit, you know, so I can still undo them. I'm not machining them away that much. It was about 1 millimetre. So just let that run out the end. It's 0.1 under surface, as you can see, so that the block can sit in there. I could have stayed above surface and put a chamfer on the underside of the tool post, but could have, should have, would have. And maybe on reflection, they're only holding it in there. A couple of M3 screws might have been a better idea, and I wouldn't have been going into the screws, but not to worry. I'm really not worried about that at all. So let's bring it out from under there and do a test fit. So tool post in the orientation it's going to go on there, and it drops down on, and there is no rock on that key. So success. Call it a day where it is. It was actually 1.28 millimeters I had to take off. Happy days. Anyway, job's a good one. So maybe just over half a thou there. It's just, you see the carriage is moving. Let me just do it again. It comes back, set 0. It was running about half thou. I think my carriage is moving. Just, yeah, you can see a jump there. That's probably me. Okay, so just over half a thou. So I think that was a success. Obviously I can tweak it a little bit, but that's not to worry. So yeah, I mean the tool posts themselves, tool holders are running within half a thou. Obviously I can set the tool up against the back and it could be further or closer or what have you, but we're in the ballpark to start with. So what that's told me is I should probably, because you know, this is on the move. Only thing holding it in position is the gear wheel underneath. So yeah, as I was, you know, I can bias it literally by force on the hand wheel, and that, I think that's where I was seeing. But I'm happy with it being half thou. Right, make a carriage lock. Think that's been done on mini lathes before. I know it's been done, I'm sure I've seen it. I'll go and have a look on YouTube, get some ideas, but I think, well, I'll show you what the first thought is. So if I have a plate underneath here that runs in the groove under the end, you know, underneath the bed ways here, that can have a tapped hole in it, and it hasn't got to be a tight fit under there. Maybe make it out of a bit of brass. Who knows? Well, it's not going to be sliding, is it? So then a bridge across here, perhaps a tapped hole here and here, piece of steel, clamp bolt, tighten up the nut, clamps the carriage rock solid. That's probably the way I'm going to do it. Don't want to encroach too much out here, so I'll make it stay within the body of this. As I said, I'm not going to be using the tailstock much on this machine, although never say never, but yeah, I'm not going to have something sticking out too far, maybe stay within the confines of the bed here. So it means I'm going to have to take it all apart again and put a couple of tapped holes in. I could probably do them where they are. Disconnect the saddle down here, and then I should be able to slide it off the end. I'll probably take it apart. They're going to be blind holes anyway, they're not going right through. So yeah, I could drill and tap a couple of holes in here, probably do it with the cordless drill, with a battery drill, make up a bracket, maybe a pocket in the bracket to take that so that it can sit back quite tight. Ooh, there's a thought. I could incorporate a bolt with a brass pad in it that goes against here, although it's not ideal, but it goes against here, so when you tighten up the little bolt it locks cross-slide as well. So you could use the bolt going down to lock the carriage and the bolt going across to lock the cross slide. Trouble is I'm pushing then against the key, not you know, the adjustable part of the dovetail, not the fixed part of the dovetail. I'd rather do that from the other side. Yeah, well, it's a thought. I might put the thread in there with a bolt in there, whether I use it or not, because it could, obviously it's going to be pushing against the adjustable side. But if it's all right, yeah. Okay, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, but it is a thought. well, I think we'll call it a day for today, guys. Yeah, I was happy to get those clamp blocks re-blacked for holding the vice on the mill, well in fact both vices. Gave the mill a bit of a birthday, a bit of a clean up, and stoned the table, gave it a bit of a Scotch Brite, cleaned it all down, lubricated it, that sort of thing. So good to get that done. Yeah, the key block for the tool post turned out all right. Half a thou. Not sure if that's the carriage moving or it is half a thou, but it's pretty good. Yeah, carriage lock, something I hadn't thought of until I tried to do that, and carriage is moving about all over the place. Even though it's a really good fit on the bed, you saw that in earlier projects with the bronze guides underneath and the amount of work it was to get that to run nice. Yeah, that was fun, wasn't it? So yeah, mini lathes coming along, guarding's coming along on the back. It's not far off the point where it's done to all intents and purposes, to the point where I haven't got to disassemble it again. So the point where we are now, I want to make that clamp to lock the carriage, and I think we're about there with parts that need to be made, all the modifying and what have you, that's got to be done before I strip it all down. So there won't be any more drilling to do, that sort of thing. So I can strip the machine down after I've made this clamp, right back down to the bare bones again, and then start all the painting and things like that. You know, strip it down, cleaning, painting, getting it all up to the point where it's going to look nice. So I'd say probably sometime in the spring that project's going to be finished, and we might be able to make some cuts on it and use it for its intended purpose. And as I said, and I've said before, purely for turning, no screw cutting on it, hence why there's no gear mechanism. Only on small parts. I bet it won't be much more than what will fit in the ER32, which is what, 22 mil, is it? Not sure. 20 or 22 mil will be like the biggest diameter it does. And yeah, it's going to be small parts on that one. And we've got the Walko to do the larger bits that I do, not that it holds larger bits. Anyway, I've waffled enough. Waffled enough. Okay, I've waffled enough. So, thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for subscribing, and we'll see you all when we see you. Cheers now.